as you leave here as the season ends?
Um, I don't know, man. I just try to be still. I think for me in times of, just uncertainty, you don't really know how things are going to go. You just kind of wait it out, and sometimes it's okay to do nothing.
How much would you like to be back here?
I would love to be back here. I mean, they already extended, picked up my fifth-year option, so I'm not really too worried about me being back, but, the team is never the same, so it's going to be interesting to see how things shake out.
So you just watched Kayvon Thibodeau sit up there with that big smile on his face, talking about how excited he is to rush the passer alongside Brian Burns and Abdul Carter in New York. And I need you to hold that image in your mind, because what I am about to tell you is going to make that press conference look like the most awkward thing you have seen all offseason. What is good, everybody? I am Dre. This is Dre Talk Sports, and today we are going deep into a trade scenario that has the entire NFL community buzzing right now. The Cincinnati Bengals, fresh off one of the most aggressive defensive makeovers this league has seen in years, are reportedly being floated as the perfect landing spot for that same Kayvon Thibodeau. The man just told you he loves New York. And New York might be about to ship him to Cincinnati for a 4th-round pick. That is the NFL, baby. Buckle up, because this one has layers. Let me set the table for you first, because context is everything. According to Bleacher Report's Christopher Knox, who put out a post-draft trading block big board that had people talking all week, the Bengals are one of the most logical destinations for Thibodeau. Knox laid it out plainly. It certainly feels like Kayvon Thibodeau's time with the New York Giants is nearing its end. The 2022 first-round pick has flashed a high ceiling, recording 11.5 sacks in 2023, but is entering a contract year without a headlining spot in the pass rushing. Rotation. That right there is the whole case in a nutshell. This is a former top 5 pick, a guy who has shown star-level production, and he is now the odd man out in his own building. And Dre's personal opinion? That situation is more embarrassing than people are giving it credit for. You do not draft a guy 5th overall and then quietly try to move him 4 years later. That says something about either the player, the organization, or both. I am just being honest with you. Now, the reason Thibodeau finds himself in this uncomfortable position is directly tied to New York's aggressive roster building over the last 2 years. The Giants traded for Brian Burns in 2024, used a 2025 first-round pick on Abdul Carter, and just used the 5th overall selection in the 2026 draft on Ohio State's Arvell Reese. So now you have got Burns, Carter, Reese, and Thibodeau all fighting for edge rusher snaps on the same roster. That is an absolute logjam. And when you are paying a guy nearly $15 million on a 5th-year option, and he is the 4th best player at his own position on his own team, the math simply does not work. Thibodeau is heading into the final year of his rookie contract in 2026, which makes him an obvious trade candidate. The Giants have all the leverage in the world to move him right now, while his value is still intact. If they wait until after the season and he walks in free agency, they get absolutely nothing for a player they spent a top 5 pick on. That is front office negligence at the highest levels. Now here is where Cincinnati enters the picture, and this is where I get personally excited, because the Bengals have been on an absolute tear this offseason when it comes to building out that defensive front. The crown jewel move was obviously the blockbuster deal for Dexter Lawrence, a dominant interior presence who transforms the entire identity of the defense overnight, but the front office might not be done yet. According to Sports Illustrated's Bengals coverage, Thibodeau would slot in as the best or second best edge rusher on the Cincinnati roster, and it likely would not cost the Bengals more than a 4th-round pick to make that happen. Read that again. A former top 5 pick. Potentially the best edge rusher on your roster for a 4th-round selection. That price is almost laughably low, and any general manager worth his salary should at least be picking up the phone and having that conversation. The numbers on Thibodeau speak for themselves when he is healthy and clicking. According to Sports Illustrated's detailed breakdown, he has accumulated 148 tackles and 23.5 sacks across 51 career games. That is genuine production. That is not a guy who got hyped on draft night and then disappeared into the roster. He has showed up and performed when his body allowed him to. And when he is fully healthy, like he was in 2023, we are talking about an elite level disruptor who can take over a game with a single play. The issue since then has been availability, which I understand gives some people pause. But here is Dre's honest take. The injury history is real, but the talent is undeniable. And if the cost of entry is a 4th round pick, you are betting almost nothing against the chance that this guy rediscovers his 2023 form in a new environment with new energy around him. Championship teams make that exact bet every single day. The fit in Cincinnati is also worth examining closely, because adding Thibodeau would not be like plugging a random piece into a puzzle that does not fit. This is a player who would immediately elevate the Bengals' pass rush in a very specific and meaningful way. Cincinnati already has youth and upside at the edge. They brought in Boye Mafe on a significant free agent deal, and they also still have former first-round picks Myles Murphy and Shamar Stewart, who they are banking on taking major steps forward this season. On top of that, they used a 2nd-round pick on Texas A&M edge rusher Cassius Howell in the most recent draft. So on paper, yes, they have bodies. But bodies and proven production are two completely different things. There is a massive gap between guys who might develop and a guy who already has double-digit sacks on his URSUM at this level. Thibodeau is a bridge from potential to reality, and that matters enormously when you are trying to win a championship right now. But here is the part of this story that I need to be completely straight with you about, because that is what we do on this channel. We give you the full picture, not just the pretty version. The financial side of this potential trade is not simple, not even close. As reported by multiple outlets covering the Bengals cap situation, Thibodeau is set to make $14.75 million on his 5th-year option. And the Bengals, currently ranked near the bottom of the league in available cap space. That is not a minor obstacle. That is a wall. Running the actual numbers, getting close to that salary figure, would require the Bengals to release several contributors. Players like TJ Slatton, Drew Sample, Andre Iosivas, Oren Burks, and Cody Ford, just to get within range of absorbing Thibodeau's contract. And even after all of those cuts, you are still coming up short while simultaneously gutting the depth at other positions on the roster. That is a significantly more complicated calculation than simply saying low risk, high reward. Now, does that mean the trade is dead? Not necessarily. According to Sports Illustrated's Bengals reporting, the front office could structure this creatively. For example, dealing a 2027 4th-round pick alongside a 2026 6th or 7th rounder to match the overall value without draining near-term assets completely. There is always a way to structure these things if both sides are genuinely motivated to make it work. But motivation requires alignment on both ends, and right now the signals coming out of New York are mixed at best. After the Dexter Lawrence blockbuster deal was completed, multiple sources reported that the Giants, who had been fielding trade calls centered on Thibodeau for several months, are now considered significantly less likely to move him. Think about the logic there for a second. They just lost their best interior defender. Their run defense took a massive hit. The last thing head coach John Harbaugh, who was brought in to turn that franchise around, wants to do is also give away his most experienced edge rusher in the same offseason. Even if Thibodeau is technically the 4th option in the pass rushing rotation, he still carries real football value for an organization trying to stabilize itself under new leadership. And on top of all of that, according to Fox Sports' reporting on the situation, Thibodeau did hint publicly at a Giants exit the day after Arvell Reese was drafted, which, listen, is completely understandable human behavior because nobody wants to be publicly replaced by the team that spent a top 5 pick to draft you. But heading into the 2026 NFL season, all signs indicate he will continue playing for New York. According to NFL Network insider Mike Garofalo, teams that have called the Giants asking about Thibodeau have been told he is simply not available. So the player showed some social media dramatics right after the draft, but the reality on the ground is that this trade is far from certain. Dre's personal read? Thibodeau stays in New York, unless a team comes in with an offer the Giants genuinely cannot refuse. A 4th-round pick, as attractive as it is for the acquiring team, is not that offer. So where does all of this leave the Bengals and their pursuit of a truly dominant defense? Here is what I genuinely believe after absorbing all of the information and sitting with it. Cincinnati is at a fascinating inflection point right now. They made the Dexter Lawrence trade, which was bold and expensive, and sent a message to the entire AFC that this front office is serious about winning in the immediate future. They brought in Boy Mafe, they have young talent developing at the edge, and now a prominent analyst at Bleacher Report is publicly connecting them to another high upside piece. For essentially pennies on the dollar relative to the player's draft pedigree, the narrative is compelling, the football logic is genuinely sound. A Thibodeau to Cincinnati deal would look incredible on paper and would generate enormous buzz across the entire league from the moment it was announced. But the cap reality, the Giants' current reluctance after the Lawrence trade, and Cincinnati's own existing investment at the edge rusher position all combine to make this significantly harder than the headline suggests. According to the detailed financial analysis that has come out of Bengals-focused reporting, there is no clean combination of salaries along the defensive line that gets Cincinnati to $14.7 million in cap relief without making cuts that would hurt the overall roster in other meaningful areas. That is a sober and honest assessment, and you have to respect the math even when it deflates the excitement a little bit. Here is the scenario I actually find most interesting though, and I have not heard enough people talking about this angle. What if this trade does not happen for Cincinnati right now, but Thibodeau becomes a free agent after the 2026 season and the Bengals come back for him then? No trade compensation, no cap gymnastics, no releasing contributors just to absorb a salary, just a straight free agent signing if they have managed their books intelligently by that point. Because here is the thing. At worst, Kayvon Thibodeau is a guaranteed starter wherever he lands. At best, he reaches his full ceiling with a few healthy seasons in a new environment surrounded by the right personnel. A motivated Thibodeau, playing for his next big contract on a team that just built a monster defensive front around Dexter Lawrence, that version of this player could be elite. That version of this player in Cincinnati stripes, paired with Lawrence eating up interior blockers, would be the kind of combination that makes offensive coordinators across the AFC genuinely lose sleep at night. The AFC North is not getting easier, people. The Baltimore Ravens are always a threat. The Pittsburgh Steelers are going to come hungry. The rest of the conference has too many explosive offenses to take your pass rush situation lightly heading into a full season. Whether this Thibodeau situation happens through a trade this summer or through free agency next spring, the Bengals have to be thinking clearly about how they continue to maximize this defensive window before their own contracts get expensive and the roster starts to naturally cycle. Adding a proven, high-ceiling pass rusher at this point in the team's build is not a luxury. It is a necessity for any organization that genuinely believes it can compete for a Super Bowl title. Bottom line on all of this is simple. The Bengals are a team that has clearly decided the window is cracked open, and they are going to kick it all the way through aggressively. The Thibodeau speculation is real, it is credible, and it is being driven by legitimate NFL analysts with direct knowledge of how these front offices operate. According to Bleacher Report's reporting, the price tag on this player is extraordinarily low relative to his potential, and that alone is enough to keep this conversation alive throughout the entire summer. But the cap situation is genuinely complicated. The Giants have cooled significantly on moving him following the Lawrence deal, and Cincinnati already has considerable investment at the edge rusher spot with their own developing players. This is not a done deal. This is not even close to a done deal. This is a possibility, an intriguing, exciting, and very real possibility that requires a very specific set of circumstances to come together the right way. If it does happen, Queen City fans are going to lose their minds in the absolute best way possible. If it does not, the Bengals will need Shamar Stewart, Myles Murphy, Boye Mafe, and Cassius Howell to collectively take massive steps forward in year one of this new defensive era. Both outcomes are fully plausible. Both outcomes carry real consequences for how this team performs when January rolls around. And I will be right here on Dre Talk Sports covering every single development the moment it breaks, with no filter and no spin. That is all for today, but before you go, I need something from you. If you learned something from this video, if this gave you a perspective you had not considered before, smash that like button right now. It costs you nothing and it helps this channel more than you know. Drop a comment below and tell me straight up, do you think the Bengals should find a way to make this trade happen at any cost, or do the cap concerns make it a move that is simply not worth the squeeze? I want to read every single response. And if you are not subscribed yet, what are you doing? Hit that subscribe button, turn on the notifications, and join the Dre Talk Sports family. We break down the moves that matter, the stories the mainstream is sleeping on, and the truth behind the headlines every single time. I will see you in